closing out.
All right, well, it's 10:37 according to my time, so I think we should go ahead and get started. And we will record again. I keep saying that, but we'll record so people can watch us later. And then, really these materials are pretty easy to follow. So I think we can always walk people through separately, one-on-one as well as needed. So with that, I'll hand it to Galen, who's going to get us started.
Well, good morning, everybody. So I will start us off with a land acknowledgement, and then I will quickly go through an agenda verbally. I won't share my screen with us, but I will go ahead and just give us an overview of what we'll be expecting this morning. So first of all, I want to say waka and good morning. My name is Galen Kelly. I am of Yupik and German descent, born and raised here in Alaska, actually born on the Dena'ina lands here. Which is where Rural Cap is based, and so it's customary for a lot of corporations to acknowledge and give thanks to the stewardship that the Dena'ina people have guided us through to this point to keep the lands as nice as they are and fruitful for as long as they have been. And I want us to have a nice meeting, get in a nice frame of mind, and be prepared to enjoy and actually learn some stuff today. And so with that, I want to kind of go over what our agenda is going to look like. And so we already hit record, thank goodness. We'll go over some introductions, and then we'll have an overview of what the process is going to look like about 10:50 this morning for about 15 minutes. And then we'll do about another 15-minute, Joy will go into the process for closeouts and just grants. And then around 11:20 to 11:30, we'll have Heather. She'll speak to the other resources for closeouts. And then we'll save the last 30 minutes from 11:30 till about 12 o'clock to go through some Q&As and for us to wrap up and really put a nice bow on this. So again, thank you for joining. Really want to welcome you guys and have a wonderful, and it's a great Monday. So let's start our week off by acknowledging that it's a great Monday. All right, I will turn it back over to Joy.
So let's allow DOJ staff to introduce themselves. So Heather, you're at my top left. Would you start us off, please?
Hi, I'm Heather McDonald. I work in OJJDP. I've been here for about 2.5 years, and I am excited to help with this closeout process. I'm going to pass it to Jerome.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon. For those on the East Coast, I am Jerome Boyd, and I work for the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention in OJP, and I serve as a program manager for many of the Alaska grantees, Purpose Area 8 and 9. And Amy?
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Amy Romero. Very happy to be part of this webinar today. I am with BJA, and I work with the PA3 grantees, and I have been processing a lot of project period extensions and a lot of closeouts as well for Alaska grantees. And I'll pass it on to Dara.
Hi all, I'm Dara Schulman with BJA, also in the Programs Division. I work with Amy. I manage the TA grants to Rural Cap for BJA, as well as I manage the state and local justice assistance formula grants in the state of Alaska, as well as the Purpose Area 2 awards. So I don't manage most of the awards that are going to be discussed today, but I'm also here just to support Amy and help out with Rural Cap, and if you have to help out with any other additional questions.
Thank you. Thanks to each of you for joining us today. With that, maybe we'll just ask our staff to introduce themselves very quickly. I'm Joy Millett. I'm the program director here at Rural Cap and work on the BJA and OJJDP projects, as well as several other projects within our division. And I will pass to Iva.
Hi everyone, I'm Iva. I work on the resource basket with the OJJDP grantees. And yeah, thanks for attending this webinar. I hope it's helpful.
So Caroline, would you like to introduce yourself?
Caroline Avanagayak-Lee. I'm the Tribal Justice Coordinator. I provide training and technical assistance to the Purpose Area 3 grantee. And I'll pass it to, well, Galen, do you want to introduce yourself again or no?
Maybe let's go ahead and hand off to the grantees. So just so we know who else is here. So let's pass to Native Village of Barrow.
Hi, my name is Karen Strickland. I'm the grants administrator for Native Village of Barrow.
Thank you, Karen. And then Megan and Melinda, do you want to introduce yourselves as well, please? Did we lose you? We lost your sound. Okay, well, they're figuring out now. Oh, there you go. There we go. Sounds good.
Good morning from Barrow, Alaska. Me, Tribal Court Administrator Megan Edwardson, here with Juvenile Program Coordinator Melinda Nayakik.
Hello, good morning.
We are here.
Thank you. And then Magistrate Contreras, will you do a quick intro as well?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Trinidad Contreras, the magistrate here in Clinton Heights Tribal Court. I'm also serving as the interim court administrator, and I'm one of the grantees. Or the tribe is one of the grantees.
Thank you. And then Trish, I see you joined us. Would you just take a minute and introduce yourself, please?
Yes, absolutely. Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Trish Thaxton, and I'm a policy advisor at BJA. I oversee the CTAS Purpose Area 2 and 3, as well as a lot of the tribal TTA that BJA supports. I'm happy to be here, and I hope that this is useful to all of you.
Thank you. I'm excited to have so many BJA and OJJDP staff here. I think we outnumber the grantees, but again, we will use this recording for later, so it's worth everyone's time. I really appreciate you all being here. All right, so with that, I think we'll hand it to Jeroma and Amy to get us started. Thanks.
Okay, I'm just going to say a few points because I think Amy and we met last week, so she has quite a bit of information to share, and my colleague Heather has some tips as well. But just to the grantees, we just like to have these conversations and stress that closeouts are a part of your grant process. And it's very important that you are timely and not get a closeout where we have to, what is the word I'm looking for? Oh, non-compliant. We don't want you to be non-compliant because that ends up impacting you later on. So we are, grateful for this opportunity to talk to you about the process and how to close the grant out, as well as giving you some tools and resources that are available to you as well. So I'll just start out by saying that, the closeout, you have 90 days after the end of the grant period to submit your information for your closeout period. It is 90 days after the grant has expired. So if you have a 9/30 end date, which most of you will, you'll have 90 days after that period for closing out your grant.
I think that was recently updated, Jerome, to 120 days.
Oh, okay. The financial guide. Okay, the financial guide online says 90. So, okay, 120 days. All right. So maybe this. Okay.
The time was recently extended. Yes, 120 days.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Amy, for that. All right. So yes, they need to update the link that I'm referring to. So with that, Amy, I'll turn it over to you because I know you had some specific points from OCFO that you wanted to highlight. And then I know Joy and Heather have some points as well.
Thank you, Jerome. Just a couple of reminders. Make sure that you meet all of the award conditions. I recommend that you review your award conditions before you submit your closeout. Make sure that everything has been completed and entered. Also, make sure that you complete your progress report. And I will talk a little bit about the final federal financial report, the FFR. So you have to request your final reimbursement, your final drawdown of federal expenditures in conjunction with the final FFR. So these requests must be submitted prior to the end of the closeout period of those 120 days after the award ends. If you're not able to do it within those 20 days, this will cause a delay and you will have to submit additional paperwork. So I do recommend that you really try to submit your final reimbursement request within the 120 days. And when you submit your final federal financial report, please make sure that you mark the final FFR as final. You're able to close out the award as soon as the activities have been completed. So you don't have to wait until the very end of the award. If everything has been completed, you could submit a closeout, but make sure that you mark your FFR as final. Also make sure that all of the funds have been obligated prior to the award end date on the FFR. Recipients who have drawn down funds in excess of the federal expenditures must return unused funds. So I had to work with few grantees that actually had to submit refunds to OCFO. So please make sure that your accounting system matches your FFR, that the amounts are exact. Otherwise, you will have to submit a refund and pay back any differences to OCFO. And you should not obligate funds past the award date. So if your award end date is 9/30/2022, that is the last day when you can have an expenditure. You still have the 120 days to close out the award, but you're not able to have a new expenditure, for example, on October 10, 2022. And that's all I have. So I will pass it on to Heather.
Heather, do you want me to jump in at this point, or do you have things you'd like to share now? No? Okay.
No, I know. You do your demonstration,
Okay.
you do your thing, yeah, and then I'll just help when you get stuck or something exciting.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and pray that this works properly. Okay, share screen 3. So hopefully now you're seeing my Just Grants page. Someone confirm that they're seeing my Just Grants page. Okay. Okay. So, and then, okay, now are you seeing a Just Grants training closeout page? Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to start here. This is the Just Grants closeout page, which hopefully everyone has already seen. Actually, you know what? I'm going to back up one place and go to this page. So this is the Just Grants training overview. So if you haven't been to this page and your grant continues beyond September 30th, this is a really helpful page to find trainings related to Just Grants. Obviously, award management, performance reporting, financial reporting, all of those are here. Closeout is here. So I'm going to click on the closeout, and that will take me to the page I just had a minute ago. And on here are two good resources for closeouts. One is this video, which I think is actually definitely worth your 3 minutes. It's 3 minutes and 10 seconds. I'm not going to show it here just because I'm concerned about internet bandwidth, but it's definitely worth watching at some point if you're in the process of closeout. I will hit on all the highlights of it as I'm going through the tool that I'm going to use here, but this is also a helpful resource. And if you can't, for some reason, watch it because your internet is poor, please let us know. We can certainly, download it on a thumb drive and send it to you if that's helpful. For today, we're going to walk through this closeout job aid reference guide. And we will also send this, I'll send a link for the video in a follow-up email. We will also include this PDF document here, which is the closeout guide, and provides some screenshots of closeout. So as Jeroma and Amy mentioned, your closeouts due 120 days after the end of your grant award. I want to just be really specific because this was a struggle for me last year as we were closing out a grant. That doesn't mean 4 months, that means 120 days. So really it's due January 28th, 2023. It's not due January 30th, which in my mind, I was thinking end of the month, but it was due 28th, and I think I got it in on the 27th or something like that. And what's also important to note is that the day after your project period ends, so that should be, I think, October 1 for most of you for your current projects, this access to this closeout report will show up in your list in your Just Grants work list. So if I can move this, I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So here's my Just Grants account, and this is my work list. So on October 1, when you log in, you should have closeout report here for you to click on and be able to start the closeout process, if of course you haven't already. The other way you can go through it, you can find it, is like if it's not here for some reason, you can go into your grant awards. So I'll click here, and these are Rural CAPS grant awards. I'm going to click on the OJJDP one as an example. And here are all of the tasks related to our grant. So hopefully everyone has seen this before for your grant, not for my grant, but and you should be able to close out from here as well. So I can't because we're not in closeout. We're not at that point, but when you have, if for some reason you can't access it on the front page, you should be able to see it here. One other thing I wanted to know while I'm on this page is this button up here around View All. I know that when I've been trying to help like our financial person through a process, I can't always see what's on their task list or what they need to do. But if I click on View All, it gives me, it'll load here, and then it does give me access to, more of the tasks related to this grant. So if you're trying to find something, sometimes this is a good place to look to see if someone has where the report is, for example. So I can see that Jeroma, has approved our performance report, things like that. It's also a little bit overwhelming, so I generally just keep it to my tasks. But. All right, so then once you've opened the closeout in Just Grants, let's scroll through this and try not to go too quickly because I don't want to make people sick.
Joy, can I interject for one quick second?
Yes, please do.
Just want to note that if you're trying to get into the closeout, not through your work list, but through the award, you have to make sure, and it depends on, you're going to hit the begin button to be able to start before going to the closeout section. So either if you're closing early, you can click the begin next to the programmatic task, or if you're closing it in the closeout period in that 120 days, there should actually be a task that says initiate closeout. So just making sure you're hitting those begin buttons. Otherwise, you won't be able to do anything else in the system.
Thank you. So Dara was just saying here, like under my grant, it says programmatic assignments. So in order to find the closeout, I would have to click on this begin button, and then from there, then I can access the closeout. Thank you. All right, so back to this PDF document that walks you through closeouts. So a closeout is generally done by the grant award administrator. That person will be able to generate a closeout before the end of the grant award, review all the requirements, submit the performance reports from the closeout screen, and then of course add any comments or attachments, and then actually submit the closeout package. And also, and I thought, I didn't realize this, so this is good to know, you can also reassign the closeouts to another user. But it has to be the grant award administrator that does that. Okay, so let's assume you found your closeout. So this is your work list. There's a closeout here. You click on it. Your closeout is open. Just gonna scroll through these. And then, oh, sorry. Okay, there we go. So then it's gonna open this page, which shows your grant award, your specific grant award. And you're going to click hopefully compliant. So hopefully you're doing this within the 120 days and you fulfilled all your requirements. And so you're going to click on a compliant closeout, which is in this drop-down list here. And then you're going to see, oops. The list of things that are requirements for a closeout package. The first one, as Amy already mentioned, is the federal financial report. So you have to do that. You know, for me, I'm lucky I have a financial person that does that for us. But maybe it's one of you who has dual roles as well. That's possible. So someone has to complete that final federal financial report, check it as final, and then it will pop up as complete in this task list here. And then Amy also mentioned the financial reconciliation. So that will show whether or not you've spent all the dollars that you've drawn down, or if Department of Justice, OJJDP or BJA owe you more money because you've had additional expenditures within your grant award. Of course, you have to stay within your grant award dollars, but if you haven't drawn all the dollars down yet, maybe they owe you money, or if you owe them money, and hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully you have spent all of your dollars. And then the next thing here is the final performance report. So you can submit this through the closeout page here. You can also log in and submit it through how you submit your other performance reports along the way. The important thing about this final performance report is that it's for your entire award period. So it's not just from July to September, you know, the rest of your grant since you've done a report. It's for the start of your grant to September 30th, which might be 5 years for some of you. I think it's different depending on the year you were awarded, and if you requested no cost extensions and all those things. But in general, this report should be for that entire grant period. And so your outcomes, your successes, your challenges, any lessons learned, all of that should cover your entire grant period. And if you're not quite sure when your grant started, if you're new staff, that's information that if you don't have it, we can probably support you in figuring that out, or you can always look in just grants. I mean, then depending on the number of your grant award, it should demonstrate what year you were started. Yes, Magistrate Contreras.
On a similar note, when there are transitionary periods with staff, is it recommended that when we're doing this final performance report that we could use previous reports to kind of give us insight for those periods that we were not there? That's kind of like the first rule of thumb. For a person like me, so I'm six to 8 months on in terms of some of these projects, since we have a 2017 award, and I wasn't even with the tribe in 2017. Since we're doing a 5-year look back period, I should be looking at those old reports to kind of summarize beginning to end kind of flow, right?
You absolutely should. Thank you so much for mentioning that. And I will show you where you can, hopefully you know where to access those, but if you don't, I'll show you here in a minute where you find them in Just Grants. But definitely look back at those reports. And you also don't want your numbers and you don't want conflicting information. So definitely pull that information from your previous reports and add it to this final report. So the other things you have to check on before you submit your final package are the award conditions and deliverables. So I'm going to go back to the My Just Grants access in order to show you where these are. So this is, again, my OJJDP, our OJJDP Training and Technical Assistance Project grant award. So I'm in the grant. And down here at the bottom is a wealth of information about your grant. The award packages here, hopefully you already know that. Award conditions are here. So these are all the conditions that when your tribe accepted your grant award, these are the conditions that they agreed to, whether you were there or not, they agreed to these. And so for our OJJDP cooperative agreement, we have 47 conditions, and I think our BJA one has 50. So these are all things we said we would do, or we would adhere to these rules basically during our time. On the right here, it says, you see where it says yes, 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 all the way down. That means that we have met those conditions. I'm going to go up here. It says award in compliance. So the yes means that we have met all those conditions. If we haven't, it will say no. And an example of one that we've had in the past that said no is when like a grant award administrator had not completed the financial training, the required training, or they completed it, but we hadn't turned in our certificate demonstrating it was completed. So you'll have to look through these to make sure that all of the conditions are met before you close out. And you can, I just want to make sure. So you can click on the award condition, or you can hover over it and it will pull up, the entire narrative related to that condition. So that's something, if one of them says no, you didn't meet it, then of course you want to know, well, what didn't I meet? What do I have to do? So then just hover over it and it will come up, the whole thing there. And then at the, oops, not this page, sorry. So I'm going to go back up and I'm going to go to performance management. And this is Trinidad, where you were talking about the performance reports. This is where you can find the previous performance reports for the award. And you'll also find the award deliverables here. So if we had deliverables, which we didn't have specific deliverables that were listed in this way through this grant, but some of you may. So it's important to just check it, make sure that there's not something here that said, the status says that it still needs to be done. Because what this is, I believe the deliverables section that's a new Just Grants section. So when we had GMS previously, we didn't have deliverables quite in this way. So I don't know, I wonder if one of the OJJDP or BJA grant managers might have an example of a deliverable that would be listed there.
Hi there, this is Heather. So the award deliverables section is a new tool that didn't exist in our previous system, but now in Just Grants, it's a handy way to collect official items that are tied to your award. So I've been using it to collect specific documents that help resolve award conditions. So I've requested grant recipients to send in, for example, strat packs or strategic plans. So many of the people in my portfolio, either tribal youth programs or juvenile healing to wellness courts, within their first year of programming, they had to turn in a strat pack. And so I've been collecting them as award deliverables. The other example is the one that Joy kind of touched on. It's the DOJ financial training certificate. So technically, in the award condition, it says that you just have to email me a copy of it. You know, me as your point of contact. But you know, for streamlining and record keeping purposes, I've been having people upload it as an award deliverable, so then it's in the system record for any DOJ user or any user assigned to your award, so that you can clearly see that your grant award administrator and financial manager is in compliance. So that's how I've been using award deliverables for official items that aren't, you know, they're tied to an award condition that you want to document. It's like a special place where you can hold things. That makes sense?
Thank you. I appreciate hearing someone else's voice on that. Thank you so much. So any other grant managers, did you want to say anything else about that? No? Okay. So I'll go back to the closeout job aid for reference now. So we've talked through the final financial report, the final reconciliation, the final performance report, the award conditions, the deliverables. So assuming all of those are met, then you can begin to think about submitting your package. Here you can add any comments you want to add, anything you want your grant manager to know with regard to your closeout package. And then you can attach any additional documentation that you haven't already attached. So most likely you've attached some things to your, final progress report. If you had a flyer about an event or something like that that you wanted to attach, you probably already have. But this could be anything else that helps to demonstrate your successes or lessons learned in this grant award. Maybe there's an evaluation report that you didn't get to attach to the performance reports. You can attach it here. Anything else you'd like them to know? And then you get down to the bottom, you can save and without submitting. If for some reason you're not quite sure you want to submit, you can save it. You can withdraw the closeout, so that puts it back into active, which probably you don't want to do, but if for some reason there was, you wanted to do that, you could. You can cancel, which then basically deletes everything that you've saved in here. So I would just recommend save, and then you can change it later if you need to. And then when you're ready, you submit. So that's the final step. And then it will come up as, being shifted from your task list to your grant manager's task list, and it will be pending approval. Magistrate Contreras, what?
Once it's submitted, let's say, is there a recommendation to submit it early such that in the event there might be an issue, you can go back in and correct the issue, or so long as you get it in before the deadline, if there an issue pops up, you can reconcile that issue? What's the, I work with a different set of deadlines, and so I always try to leave a buffer for in the event we need to get something done, we want to get it in before the deadline so that we can follow up and make sure it's clean before the deadline. And so I'm just wondering, since I've never done a closeout before and I'm working with other people, it's coordinating a variety of different things and I have my own schedule. I just want to make sure if we submit it and it gets pushed back, whether or not that cleanup needs to happen before the 20 days is up, or if there's a window afterwards such that you have time to clean it up, but there's still an unspoken, you got to get it done because it's past the deadline kind of thing.
Well, my immediate response is always try to get it in early because there may be glitches along the way, but maybe someone from OJJDP or BJA wants to say something in addition to that.
Yeah, this is Jeroma. So as long as you get it in by the date, your due date, you will be fine. We do find that sometimes we have to go back and request more information from a grantee, or, you know, something is missing and we have to follow up with you. So generally when it hits our work list, we have so many days to finish the process. So that's not reflective on you. Now, I've had some that went way beyond deadlines, so or due dates. But as long as you get it in within that time frame, if we have to work with you to get some additional information, that's okay. I would just really encourage everyone to be highly responsive to that. We know it's a lot of turnover and, you know, things happen, but I have had grantees where I've had to issue a non-compliant closeout because they submitted it, but they didn't submit maybe the final report. That was the one thing that was missing. And it was really hard just getting that last piece of information. So if your grant manager reaches out to you, I just urge you to, you know, respond pretty quickly.
Yeah, I want some guidance on an internal timeline. There's some things that, like your work is relying upon other folks, and I'm in the same boat. And so I try to remind people to be mindful of that. And so I try not to use my title as influence, but every now and then I kind of have to remind them. I got other things on my docket that I need to be dealing with. The administrative stuff has to fall in line because it competes with some of my other duties. So let's put our ducks in a row. We have 120 days. We need an internal deadline of like 90 days to get it done rather than waiting the full period just because it needs to be checked off and out the door.
Yeah, and I will say that, I mean, at least for us, when I did the closeout last year, which was the first time I had done a closeout in just grants, we had, you know, had all of our expenditures, all of that was really completed within, you know, 45 days. So the holdup on getting it submitted was just me and my own time. So I would suggest that you try to get things in early, just to, then you're done. Then you can say, okay, it's off
my finance
radar for now. Yeah.
Finance has said that they're ahead of the ball on their stuff. It's a matter of, it's the 5-year look back period that I'm really concerned about in terms of I need to pull those old reports. If we don't already have them, go into Just Grants, save a copy so that we have them because things have moved around and they're inconsistently placed within our internal system. So I just want to double check that we have everything for us. But we need that data and the narratives and everything else to kind of, I want to do, in order for, I think for the best work product to come out, to have a summary for each year, but it requires us to kind of condense everything down. So then when we have a narrative, because I also need to, I guess I'll have to look at, see what the questions are, see what they ask for that final report. But you want to be able to tell the story, but you have to be comfortable with the data in order to be able to cohesively tell the story and have it make sense. And so it does require some pulling out of cobwebs and learning new information for those of us who weren't around at that time. And so we have some institutional collective knowledge, but it's bits and pieces. Not everyone knows the whole story. And so pulling the reports, I think, is going to be helpful.
Yeah, for sure. So that's the end of the section I was going to go over about the closeout process. So I'm going to hand it to Heather to provide additional resources and tips. Oh, and Dara has something to add before we jump in. Thanks.
to hopefully make you feel a little bit better, Magistrate Contreras, is at least for if it's a BJA award for the purpose area 3, you're reporting in the BJA PMT every quarter. And there should be a summary combined PMT report that actually, when you do the final report, it's actually going to aggregate all the data for you. So that might actually help you out in terms of collecting everything from the very beginning of the award. So you wouldn't necessarily have to write everything up and complete everything. You would just do a summary of where everything has been completed, and all the rest of the data should be aggregated within that PMT report. I'm not sure if that's the same for JJ. I know some of your programs use PMT, but not all of them. So, but for the BJA, if it's a BJA award, that might help you. Heather's telling me no. So, yeah, but that might help you for if it's, I don't know which award you have, if it's purpose area 3 or not.
Yeah. I also think that it's just a helpful exercise because we have turnover. I think people need to know the history, because there's some questions where people ask in terms of how was this decision made, or why do we have this? And so we're starting to look at some of our organic documents. And so we're just coming across some of that with our technical assistance guidance that we're receiving. And so, so rather than saying it was before my time and just leaving that as the answer, that's not as always helpful. We need to kind of have a better understanding of that. It's an easy way out at that point in time, but we should educate ourselves such that that's not the answer moving forward. We kind of dig into it and figure it out. And so that's good to know, at least data-wise, that there's the potential under I guess PMT, I'll jump that down. If it's PMT, there's presumptively at least some of the data that gets aggregated. Okay.
Thank you, Dara. Okay, now I'll hand it to Heather.
All right, I'll just add on here for Magistrate Contreras and all the people watching the recording. So this is one of the challenges of applying for CTES, right? You get so excited, you do that single application for so many purpose areas, but guess what? You got different award conditions for each of those awards. So sometimes that makes a thing like closeout much more complex than you anticipate. So Magistrate Contreras' suggestion to move your timeline up to meet your own internal business needs, that's a pretty great idea. Yes, so like BJA, OJJDP, so everybody with an old grant from 2019 or earlier, which is everybody that would be closing out right now, you get to do 2 systems for an OJJDP closeout. So it's not like the BJA example. You get to use 2 systems. One of them is the PMT system, which we have for our thing, and that's that sort of online tool where you add all of those, what is it called? That's where you add in all of the raw data, right, for your outputs and some of your outcome changes. Those are the standards that you've been recording, gathering with your tools every year, and you put them in twice a year. So at the very end, when you make a final report, you're going to download a final report that tallies everything from that system. But what people actually forget or struggle with is what Magistrate Contreras was talking about, is the entire summary. So it's a written narrative that you write separately of your own, in your own style. So whatever style works for you, but it has to cover the entire time period of the grant. So like Joy was talking about earlier, so if you had 1, 2, 3 or more no-cost extensions, the story of the grant has to start from October 1st of whatever year it was awarded to the January or to the end date of that grant. So that could be a very long time period. So you want to make sure you talk about everything that was awesome or that wasn't the best or everything that was incomplete. You want to tell the story of the grant. And so like Magistrate Contreras was talking about, you want to use the tools you have available. So you want to find those narratives that are already saved in Just Grants, especially if you had lots of staff turnover. Find a friend in your tribal entity that's been the record keeper, if you're lucky, right, of those reports so that you have a place to start. Something that's good to know is there's no standard. We don't, in OJP, in the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, We don't have a standard as to how you write your narrative, so you can use your own administrative policies and procedures to determine how it is you want to tell that story. The only requirements we have is that the story must cover the entire length of the program, and it must be in narrative form. So some people use, there's a generic template called a capper, which is basically just a blank Word document where you grab each performance measure that you had for your own grant, and you just tell the story of whether you achieved it or not. That's a very tedious and old-fashioned way to do it. It's not necessary, but that's one way that you could write your narrative report. So the important thing to remember for a closeout is in OJJDP, you actually do 2 final reports, one in the old-fashioned PMT system and one in a narrative style, like you're writing a story to record all of the awesomeness and challenges that you've experienced across the entire time period of the grant. I think that's the biggest point that I wanted to make today related to performance of a grant award. Do you have any other questions, anybody? Did that make anybody have any new ideas or thoughts pop in your head?
I will just also say that that PMT attachment or document can then be attached in Just Grants to your final report. So that last attachment section that I said, you know, if you have something to attach here, that would be something to attach there. And with that, I'll let Magistrate Contreras ask again.
Sorry. What's the average length of a report? Just so that we can kind of get a gauge for what might be.
Oh, Magistrate Contreras, there's
reasonable?
no guide. There's no rules for that. I've read simple ones as little as 2 pages. And I've read some of 20 pages where they've given me photo stories and details of every tribal youth activity that they've done across 5 years, like it's a little yearbook. So there's no rules, right? So clearly that yearbook one, the audience was also the board, right? When you think about the board, you know, and I just got to be the secondary person that read that, but it met the needs for me to do the closeout. So if you can think of efficiencies like that, that might be a nice thing to do.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. And I'll just add that Dara also says that the PMT for BJA grants must be attached to the final performance report in Just Grants. So any other questions? Anything from MVP, questions or concerns that you have as you're hearing about this process? And of course, anything else from Magistrate Contreras, please jump in. I just know you will, when you have a question, I know you'll ask. Megan, we can't hear you.
Of course. How about now?
There you go. Yep.
Okay, so we're here. We've been listening. That was a lot of information. We both plan on going to go look at all of these Just Grants closeout training videos as soon as we get off of here. And we'll be working closely with Karen and our finance director, I hope, to do this. Thank you for mentioning that, though, because, see, we do have 2 grants that are going into 5 years now. And, of course, neither of us were here, or we're going to have to figure out what they did and what they didn't do. So, and we are very thankful that you are encouraging us to start this early, because we already have a lot of stuff to do. This is something we want to get done and do right. So thank you very much. We've been listening. We have some more training to look at, but I think we might be okay. This is going to be both of our first time ever closing out a grant. But I think with our finance director and Karen's help, we should be all right. Yeah, Karen?
Right. And this will be my first time on a closeout too, because I've only been with grants since like the end of last year, I think December. So
okay,
it'll be my first time to close out in Just Grants.
So any other questions or questions from grantees, but also any other additional tips from grant managers, any other ideas or resources that we should put in the chat, and then, as I said, will follow up with an email that has all these resources listed in it.
Joy, I'll make two tips that I'll recommend for closeouts. One is try to do your final drawdowns, I would say with 90 to 100 days or 115 days before the closeout is due. That way it sometimes can take a day or two for that to show up on the financial reconciliation. So that way you want to make sure that your drawdowns match what you reported as your obligations, and just making sure that so that all lines up and it's updated in the system before the closeout is submitted. And then the other thing is especially now that you have 120 days, make sure when you're checking on your final FFRs that the cumulative amount that's being reported for indirect, make sure that it doesn't exceed what was approved in your budget. Because if that's the case, they're going to reach out to you and ask you to return those funds. So if those numbers don't match up, you may need to do, that's why it's also good to start early, you may need to do a final budget reconciliation modification GAM. So you just want to make sure that your indirect is lining up with what's approved in your budget and what's being reported as having been obligated towards the grant. Because that's our number one, I think it's probably one of the number one reasons why the financial team will send closeouts back to us.
Just to build off on that, a couple of grantees have asked, so the final GAM, they can request, like the indirect has moved, right? When the first grant started, it was 2%, and now it's like 10%. It kind of moves sometimes every year. That can be rectified with a GAM. That's not something that isn't set in stone, correct?
Yes, that's correct. When your indirect cost rate changes, you should submit a grant adjustment modification in the new indirect cost rate agreement. And then you can update your budget accordingly when you do that.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, tips before we give ourselves back a few more minutes from today? Never know.
I just want to say, just because indirect cost was just mentioned, we know that it takes some time to get your indirect cost rates approved often. And if you are looking at a span of like 4 to 5 years that your grant has been open, it really is important that you look to see what your current approved indirect cost rate is on your grant. Again, that's your grant special conditions and what you were approved for. And to make any modifications or requests, it is very important because we have grantees who that special condition stays on their grant almost a number of years, while the grant is open. So we just, that's another topic. I know it's hard to get those rates approved any quicker than you do, but that is something that comes into play when you have to close your grant out. So the sooner you can get that rectified, it will help you with this process as well.
And another question to build on that, a question that one of our grantees have asked me before. What if the grant did not include an indirect in the original grant? Can they still do a GAM to request it?
Yes, so the same is true. You'll have to submit the approved indirect cost agreement, and you'll have to do a grant adjustment, a GAM in the system for budget modification.
Okay. Anything else? I mean, obviously, if anyone has questions, you can reach out to Tribal Justice Resource Center and Resource Basket staff or your grant manager. And we will provide additional resources in an email. And this recording will also be available to refer back to. And we are thrilled you were all here today. So thank you so much for your time and for your questions. And I hope everyone has a wonderful Monday.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Bye,
Much
everybody.
appreciated.
Yay!
Hey, check that one off the list.
Yes, the only thing that didn't go in there I was going to ask you to put was the PDF link, but we're going to do that in the email anyway.
Yeah, we'll follow up. I thought sometimes people don't have access to the Zoom afterwards, so we'll follow up. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
You, Caroline.
Lots of good questions. A couple of people didn't show up, but I've got a lot of good information to give them when they call me.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking some questions on people's behalf. I think that's helpful too.
Yeah, they would have asked them if they were here.
Yeah.
There's a couple of them that I didn't write down. I should have. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.